Any place for me? Oh. So, oh, maybe.
Some water as well?
Well, we can check that if the microphone works, we can start then. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, every robotics enthusiast here. My name is Leox. I'm from Technical University of Munich, and also we are having a startup, Olive Robotics, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all here into captivating discussion on applying human-centered robotics and AI in real life. This panel discussion, actually we have four great guests, and but I want to give you first a small intro, and then we go to see what is waiting here to discuss. So, in this digital era, robots and AI have moved from science fiction to our living rooms, workplace, and hospitals, and more. And I would say literally everywhere. And today's conversation, we want to focus on essential aspects of this technology and how we can ensure these intelligent systems are truly human-centered, respecting our values, safety, and enhancing our lives. We are privileged to have four eminent panelists with us, each a pioneer in their domain. And first panelist, we have Professor Dr. Cristina Piazza. She has spent her career studying human movement and designing artificial devices that leverages soft robotics to enhance the lives of people with upper limb amputation. Her work at the Technical University of Munich is testament to the potential of human-centered robotics in healthcare. And our second guest, Professor Leila Takayama, welcome, is an authority on human-computer interaction. Her research at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and her previous roles at Google X and Willow Garage provide valuable insights into the complexities of human-robot interactions. And our third speaker, Dr. Ing Roland Behrens, works at the forefront of safety in collaborative robotics at the Fraunhofer IFF. His commitment to creating a safer work environment through innovative safety mechanism in human-robot collaboration is both inspiring and vital to the discussion that we will have today. Welcome. Finally, we have with us George Vögel from DLR, a luminary in the field of robotics and mechatronics at the German Aerospace Center. His work on assistive robot technology and brain-computer interfaces is not just technologically impressive, but it's also bring both profound and societal impact in the robotics world, I would say. Thank you and welcome. Each one of our panelists brings with them unique perspective into this topic that we will have today. They will provide us with some insights into the opportunities, challenges, ethical considerations, and critical need and regulations that needs to be applied on the application of human-centered robotics and AI in our real life. So with that in mind, so I wanted to say we can skip to the questions. I have some questions prepared. Maybe we can start with Some general question, maybe based on your background, that's what you've been working. I will maybe start with Professor Christina Piazza, and I would like to ask, in your experience with rehabilitation robotics, how have you seen the principles of human-centered design applied to those systems, and what are the tangible benefits to the patients?
Thank you so much for the question. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel. So this is a very important point, actually, because what we have seen, especially in the last years, it's the role of human-centered design approaches. Events like Cybertron, where different teams are competing with assistive technologies, with bringing novel technologies and the impact of their research, showed us also how it's important to work in straight contact with the patient, with the user. So in my personal experience, this made a huge difference. So we readjusted, we changed our research lines and our path according to the user needs. And this makes, of course, the design of the device more effective. So this is actually something that we can see in the state of the art that is changing a lot. There is a huge push toward human-centered design because we don't only need to build technologies for the user, but together with the user.
Great. Thank you so much. Wanted to ask if you have something to add on this, if you have some comments, especially.
Actually, the music is very loud, so I couldn't hear.
I could also get disturbed by that.
Nothing.
Okay, so maybe then I will move to another question that we have from you. In light of AI's increasing role in daily life, what are some critical considerations or principles to ensure AI is designed and developed with respect for human values such as privacy and fairness?
I think one of the principles that we use a lot in human-computer interaction that's been really useful for taking a principled approach to ethics and values is something called value-sensitive design. And this is something that came out of University of Washington, where you involve the end users as early as possible in the design of your systems. Before you set any product requirements, you spend time in situ with the people who are actually going to be using your robots. Maybe they don't want robots. Maybe they want a different solution, right? And it's better to figure that out sooner rather than later. Or maybe they want a different robot. So just to give you an example, we at Willow Garage were looking at older adults as a potential group who may want to use, mobile manipulator robots with 2 arms. Turns out they didn't want PR2s in their houses. They were actually eyeing our telepresence robots, which were a lot smaller. And we were like, but they don't have any autonomy. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, but I could use that to keep in touch with my friends and family. And so then we heard things like, well, we'd like to use telepresence robots, so the adult children and grandchildren can visit grandma and grandpa in the retirement community. So we went and talked with those folks about that, and they said, no. I want to use the telepresence robots to go out. I want to go hang out with my friends and go to concerts and go to ball games and go to football games and heckle the players with my friends. I don't really want it in my house, right? I don't want my kids visiting me when I'm on a date.
Completely other way around.
Yeah, and so I think, spending time, really early time in your development stages, talking to those people and hanging out with them is really how you can get down to the values, the privacy issues, the ethical issues, and the dignity issues as early as possible in the design cycle.
Yeah, this is exactly, we always said that we engineers, we have always something in our mind that we think that, okay, this is supposed to be like exactly this way, but when you really ask people, they completely want different thing. And yeah, I could really see the first user study can really change the way you develop this kind of technology.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay.
It's nice to be told you're wrong when it's early enough to make changes.
Understand, yeah. Anyone wants to add on top?
No, I just can confirm what she just said. So it's very easy, even in an industrial domain, so where I come from, to involve the stakeholders which are relevant. as early as possible, because otherwise, you know, we are engineers, we are thinking technical ways, and sometimes we lose the human-centric view out of our eyes, and that's critical. It could be expensive at the end if the solution is not accepted by the employees, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe then I ask the next question.
Sure.
Bring it with your background into the topic. What is, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge in the integration of collaborative robots that we just talked about into the everyday use cases as well as industrial settings? And how can these be addressed from your perspective?
So there's no simple answer to that, but what we need is we need a better way how we ensure safety. Today we are working, or we're seeing here at this great exhibition, a lot of AI-empowered robots. So the technology is evolving so fast, it's overwhelming, and but the way how we ensure safety is literally 20 years old. You know, we do it like we did it 20 years ago. So it's very conservative, and now we have this situation that the methodologies which we apply to ensure safety, they cannot keep up, you know. It's and sometimes standardization is blamed, but we need to keep in mind that standardization is a consensus-based process, so it's democratic. We need to hear everyone's voice, we need to hear everyone's fear. So to come back to your question, so what we need to do is that we need to find better ways, not better requirements. I think the safety requirements we have, at least in the industrial domains, they are okay. They work, but we need to find better methodologies how to ensure safety. What do I mean? For instance, the risk assessment, which is at least in Europe a mandatory process. It's set by legislation, so there's no way around it. But it's still paperwork, you know. I mean, if you do your tax declaration, do you do it on paper? No. You're using tools, digital tools, and that's at least what I want to change in the near future. That we have better tools, better technologies, which changing the methodology, the way we ensure safety. For instance, a digital risk assessment. It's possible, so we can work within the given legal framework. But we need different approaches, and that's something which we need. And then we can talk about safe autonomous robots, which take their own decisions, which assess the risk on their own. And I think that's there could be a small breakthrough for these robots, or maybe it's also a requirement to bring them out into the world.
That's true. Anyone wants to add on top? Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's in the US, right, we talk about self-certification now, which is, it's a hybrid process, right, where you would bring, say, an AMR into a warehouse, and for that specific warehouse, right, what are the risks, and how are you going to mitigate all of them? I think right now is a good time to start thinking about improving those tools.
And a good point, and we need to crack the nut first, I would say, in the professional domains, so where we have a structured environment, and when we have solved this challenge, or when we find solutions for that, I think then it's the right time to think about how to modify them to bring the robots in our everyday life, you know, because then we encounter all elderlies, we encounter children, and that's a difficult question, and also an ethical one. So what do we want to allow? So is it allowed to touch a children, you know, without the permission from the parents, and so on? I mean, there are so many questions, and not only safety questions.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we need this discussion, and it's maybe today it's a good point to start with, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. We are talking now about the fully autonomy, but there is also shared autonomy. Maybe then it's your background on the shared autonomy, I would say. I want to ask then, beside this autonomy that we need to bring a lot of safety protocol on top, and you know, as we said, there is a lot of regulation needs to take place in advance before we are getting there. So we have this shared autonomy system. And now what emerging technologies or approaches do you find promising for enhancing the shared control in assistive robot technology? Because Because as you say, for example, for taking care of a kid, maybe a full autonomy is too much risk. Maybe at the moment, maybe in the future, it's definitely going to be different. But shared autonomy is a different story. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the advantage of shared autonomy is that you have a human in the loop, and basically they can take care of the high-level planning. What is the robot supposed to do? And it's like with autonomous cars. Currently, there's always a driver in the seat, and in shared control, or at least in the assistive robotics, so robotics for people with physical disabilities, where I'm working, we have always the human in the loop who controls the robot, who steers the action, and we have to just give them the right tools with the robot, or the right skills with the robot to interact with the environment again, and they can decide what to do and how to use the robot. And this also bridges to the other questions that were asked with the human-centric design. It was very interesting to see in our first case studies that we did. We tried to advertise the shared control to them. Hey, you don't need to control all these degrees of freedom to grasp the mach. We can help you with this. And our subjects were like, no, I want to do this. I'm capable of controlling all degrees of freedom of the arm on my own. It takes longer, but finally I'm the one to control the arm and decide what to do. So there's very many interesting questions related to this shared control and how to put people in control of the system and giving them the feeling of being in control, even though the robot supports them and not breaking anything.
Yeah, if I may add something, I totally agree with your point, and I think this is, especially for use cases as assistive devices or rehabilitation, it's very important to keep the user in the loop, to keep the user active, and to promote the sense of embodiment of these devices, because this can help also to increase the acceptance of the technology, because the user feels still in power, but in some parties helped by the device autonomously. We have access to amazing technology, so why not use them? But at the same time, as you said, it's very important to keep the user in control. Also, from my perspective, from my experience.
I just want to add to that. I agree. Also, we worked with a guy named Henry Evans on this project called Robots for Humanity, and he's paraplegic and mute. And we thought that the robot should just do whatever he wanted it to do, and we would magically make it fully autonomously help him. And he told us, the one thing I want to do is shave myself. I can ask my wife to shave me, but like she doesn't really do it that well, and I just want to do it myself. And so really the answer was making an input control device so that he could shave himself with the robot. And I was scared, quite frankly, because there's sharp blades and there might be blood. But it was worth it, right? The risk was worth it in this case. And I think having the shared, feeling in control and being in control and having your own human autonomy and dignity matters a lot in those cases.
Yeah, absolutely. This because what I can see is that we are all aware that we were expecting to have, for example, autonomous cars way early, but now we see that there is way more helpful to have better shared autonomy systems than a fully autonomy so far, maybe with the current technology that we have in hand. But then connecting this to again back to other field of the applications that this technology will be useful, reflecting on the application of AI in your research, which helping people with some disabilities. How can AI made for transparent and understandable to individuals interacting with rehabilitation robotics? Because AI, we are using even in shared autonomy or even in different tools, for example, that as for example you mentioned, there should be right tools to provide for people to be able to do shared autonomy. And what do you think in this regard? AI is for many people look like a black box. How we can guarantee that this shared autonomy that we know, okay, we have the even still full control of that, but shared autonomy still using AI technology on the background. How this transparency can be achieved even when using AI in shared autonomy?
Yes, that's an important point. And in my specific field, we use a lot AI, for example, to interpret to the code the user intention from the muscle activity and transfer this information to control the prosthesis. So currently in the market, but also in research, we have access to novel technologies, amazing devices, hence capable of high level of dexterity. But how we control this? We need better algorithm, and we have access to it. But very often, as engineers, we try to hide what is the technology behind, what is the code behind, because we feel that it's too difficult for the user to understand. But in my experience, we saw that if we try to explain in simple words or with simple plot, we show the signals, we show how the technology works, this helps a lot also to get a better outcome of the use of the algorithm itself. So what we tend to do is to create interfaces that are more intuitive, to show in a simple way, in a simplified way, signals or how we decode this information to explain what we extract. Because actually it's not too difficult, it's challenging from the control point of view, but it's easy to understand for every user. You don't need technical skills if you explain with simple words. So this makes also the overall experience and approach to AI more user-friendly.
Understand. Any comments on that?
I think if you understand your code well enough, you can explain it simply.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you don't, there may be a bigger problem.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
So being able to explain it to end users is a test of our skills, right?
Yeah,
Maybe I can share some personal experience. I mean, everyone knows ChatGPT, and I'm a little bit afraid of this technology because I don't know how it works. How does it know so much things? How does it know how to program HTML code and so on? And this makes me a little bit afraid. So because I cannot explain it to my kids, I cannot explain it to my wife, and I have a technical background. So I'm a little bit lost, and this makes me, a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
And this is only the start, what we see now.
Exactly. This is something that when it comes exactly to transparent AI, of course, it needs some knowledge. For example, in my also own, I would say, opinion, that you need to explain that ChatGPT is, for example, not special thing that knows about this. It just knows how to predict the next word in the best scenario based on the previous conversation it had, for example. And this way it can keep continuing and generating the answer. But of course it needs some technical knowledge to understand, okay, yeah, this is how it works, but making the user understand at least with the basic and simple words, I would say this is a very critical point, because if someone is using some prosthetic, robotic solution, and say that, okay, there is some AI is running there and will control your joint angles, for example, in this scenario, you said, okay, the inputs are velocity, position, and this and that, and the output again is designed based for your body, for your weight, and yeah.
Yeah, then maybe we can have something, some part of the action that is still delivered by the control mechanism in an autonomous way, but the high-level control, I think, should be clear for the user how
Exactly,
it works.
exactly. Then maybe again, human-robot interaction based on your background. With your knowledge in this field, what are the main factors that can lead to a successful, intuitive, and satisfying interaction between human and robots?
There's no silver bullet, but I think some practices that can help, right, one is leveraging very familiar mental models, right? So you've probably seen some quadruped robots running around, and for that, it sort of triggers this mental model of dog for many of us. And I think if we can design to live up to those expectations of, say, dog, right, or car, I think that can help people to make sense and predict what the thing is going to do next. So that's one way. Okay. One of many. Another, is just good user-centered design, right? Like help people to understand what's going on, introduce them to the technology when you first bring it to them, show them what the features are, but also show them what the features are not. We've run a bunch of user studies where we set expectations differently for people about the exact same technologies. It was an Aibo dog at the time. And if you set expectations too high, they believe you. And that is so dangerous. Because then your Aibo, that is no longer being supported by Sony, falls off of a table and breaks a leg, right? And that's not good for the robot, and it's not good for the user. And so I think being honest about what the limitations are can really help for the survival of our robots, but also set expectations that we can actually meet for our end users. That doesn't necessarily make them, incredibly happy, but at least that makes them satisfied enough because you didn't overpromise and underdeliver.
So
Thank you.
Can
Thanks.
add to
Yeah,
this.
please.
I totally support this, and I think it's important to also talk to the end users that you have in mind as early as possible, even in research, or especially in research, let's say. So we're now having a project where we try to check how we can use robots in elderly care to support the caretakers. And we now had a workshop where we just explained them what we are going to do. We took the time to talk to them, and they really took the opportunity to talk to us and already raised some ideas that they have. And this way, by talking to them early on, you can make sure that you develop something that is really meaningful to them and that they also want to use because they were involved in the design process, basically.
Exactly. But then again, I would say that then again there is a safety protocols involved. Like this again brings us to again a question that I want to ask you. um, how can this the physical safety protocols in robotics then? Because now actually she just explained that okay there was a robot falling and breaking the robot itself and we need to set the limitation correctly, and so now I want to know these physical safety protocols in robotics evolve to keep pace with the increasing sophistication and ubiquity of AI and robotics in everyday life. How these protocols do you think that they need to be shaped, and what are the challenges there, and what we need to build to make sure that this is the right way we are going actually?
So first of all, when we're talking about robots that are allowed to physically interact with people, we need biomechanical thresholds. So we need thresholds for interacting forces, we need thresholds for collision forces. So luckily we have some thresholds for collisions or clamping situations, but only for people at an employable age between 18 to 60. So we don't have children, we don't have elderlies. So that's still missing. It's not so easy to determine these thresholds from an ethical perspective. So let's assume we have these thresholds, then we need, of course, to find ways how the robot can, let's say, include or understand these thresholds so that they automatically moving in a safe way. So what do I mean with that? So today, the state of the art, it's very funny, but today we need to measure the contact forces, meaning that we have a measuring instrument, we need to install it, we need to program the robot, we need to simulate a collision. So that's the state of the art in the industrial domain. And this, of course, does not work, I would say, in the private sector or in a robot which is taking autonomous decisions and motions. And here we need to find, I think one option would be that the robot is doing a self-assessment before the robot is actually commanding the motion or whatever, and this could be done with models. So I think we need a human, a verified biomechanical model, which is included, hardwired into the robot, and makes the robot capable to understand the human response from a biomechanical perspective. So meaning that they can reprogram themselves when they see, okay, the person is very close, it's the risk of a collision in the region of the leg, and now the leg can, let's say, resist forces like this and this and this, so that the person does not feel any pain, and this means for me that I have to move like this and this and this. So, and I think this needs to be, each motion or each action the robot is going to take, they need to be assessed based on models. At least this approach we are following at Fraunhofer, and we are confident that this will work and will be accepted by the official bodies because they have the last word of this, of course. And but I think this could be a way to ensure the safety.
But then this, are we really transparent when it comes to this limitation of our robots have, and when companies they want to sell their robots, their solution, or develop a new technology, they mainly only talk about the benefits. They only talk about the good parts, not the limitations. How we should solve this problem? To tell that, okay, this robot, for example, sometimes the sensor accuracy is 99.9%,
Yeah.
but what about those 1%?
That's a good question. So at least we should be transparent, as you said it. So we should so the technology should be open access, whatever, so that everyone can have a look on it who's interested. So we should create acceptance and I'm not an expert in these questions, but I think the first way is to be very transparent, to make decisions which were maybe taken by standardization bodies, that they are well documented and well communicated to the public. And I think this is the first step, and it's an easy step.
I just want to build on that. I think that we should make it socially acceptable to show all of our robot blooper videos, because robots usually don't work, and we're so good at showing that 100th take when it finally worked. And we celebrate that because we know that the first 99 didn't work. And so I would say one way might be if we all start sharing all of our bloopers, we can set expectations a little better, at least with the general public. Right, so they understand why we cheer when they finally work. We caught it on tape.
This is a very good example that for many years we were only see, for example, when it comes to this kind of video, there was very nice video from Boston Dynamics coming, and then after some time they start also showing the video of the background, how many times this robot failed jumping from this table, for example, until it made it, for example, 3 times correct, and that I think changed a lot of people's perspective, and exactly.
It shows how hard it is, right? Like how hard the work is to make it kind of work.
And also failure is important because we can learn a lot from what is not working, from what we should improve, where we should push. So I actually totally agree.
I know of some bipedal robots where they tell users, just don't stand behind it, and it'll be fine. Just don't stand behind it. And users are going to ask why, right? What's going to happen?
Yes, but maybe I can add something to that. I mean, when we see it as a product, and at the end there will be notified bodies which doing a certification and testing and ensuring that the product is safe. I mean, at least in Europe and I think worldwide, we have very strict rules, and we have to stick to these rules. And there are special products which need a certification, and I think this will be also the way how we can ensure that the products, the bipedal robot, which is a product, let's say, I hope in 10 years, that this is somehow certified, and the manufacturer is ensuring his customers, his clients, that the robot is working correctly within the boundaries set by official bodies.
Sounds good. Thank you. So now I want to ask actually some questions that I would like to hear each of your opinion on this. One question is, as a pioneer in this field of human-centered robotics and AI, how do you all envisioning the future of these technology? I believe that each of you have seen in the past, and you can see that, okay, how we are evolving in this journey. And specifically with a major advancement in, for example, like what we say, language models that we have, the AI models we have, and the applications, the new applications. We have every day some new applications that robotics, AI can solve and handle. And what do you expect in the next decade that will greatly enhance our the human experience, actually? Maybe we start with you.
Yes. So specifically to my field of research, I will say that AI in the future can help us to make devices that are more naturally and more integrated with the user of the body. So we will have these bionic limbs fielded more as part of the body of the user, capable of performing different actions. So a higher level of dexterity, but without adding too much cognitive load on the user. So I think this will be a great benefit of AI-based algorithm to find a good trade-off between the performance and the cognitive load requested by the user. And this will allow to enhance the sense of embodiment, how the user is capable to perform the action, because we are still working on it. There are several limitations, and I think there will be a great push towards more dexterous and natural behavior, coordination of different movement of different joints.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I think relating to that,
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's all about the interfaces. I think robotics is about 20 to 30 years behind the personal computer in terms of being useful and usable for everyday people. And I know, all of the exhibits here, we're seeing things that are becoming easier and easier to use for normal folks. And I'm excited about the future where we design robots that are not just for roboticists. We design robots that other people can use too, right? And I think that's where the human-centered design is so important. I think we're going to see new kinds of interfaces, right, between people and these machines. That's really exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely it's and how about like the challenges also? Maybe you can also add like what are the stopping point for these? Maybe you can also add on that.
Sure. I mean, controlling 2 7-DoF arms simultaneously is not easy, right? There's very few people in the world who can do that for a living. And so I do think there's a very important place for autonomy, right, to reduce those degrees of freedom and give people high-level control, right, over a shared control system that's usable for us mere muggles, right, who maybe haven't played as many video games as those professional robot operators have.
Yeah. Maybe we hear
Yeah,
from you. Thank you.
how do I see the future? A fun fact, I have a bet running with my colleague, and I said that when I retire, which is in 25 years from now, so I look older than I are actually, so I'm 40 now, and the bet goes like, so I have a robot at home, which I can say, here, grab me something from the fridge and bring it to me. So I mean, we already have Alexa, so the understanding, this I would say this is solved, but now I need the robot, and it needs to be affordable, so it needs to be my robot or whatever, rented robot, but it's installed in my home, so 25 years. It's a tough bet, I would say, and but come on, guys, help me out here. But in a decade, I would say that we will see more because I have a safety background, but I think that the safety is kind of digitalized, so that we actually using more models in order to assess a robot, and that is getting much more simpler. As again, the analogy, text decoration, 20 years ago it was paperwork. Today it's done by a software almost automatically with AI methodologies, and then that's something we can do as well for the safety. And so I always say the standard and the safety should be inside the robot, not inside my head, because I know what I want to do with the robot. And the robot should tell me, okay, you can do this like this and this, and these are the boundaries. And I don't want to understand why are these boundaries there. Yes, this is good for acceptance. So, but at the end, I want to realize an application, and and I don't want to do the safety. It should be simple, like my cell phone. I unbox it and I use it. And I don't do a risk assessment and configure it, and that's way too complex. I just want to use it.
And does that thing need to be a cold beer, perhaps from the refrigerator?
Yes, it was a beer, and actually it is. So the price is a box of beer. So it's not that much, but it's my honor. So I want to win this bet. So.
No, very exciting, and we want to hear.
I hope that we all win this bet, because that's what we are working on, right? To make this happen in 25 years. And I mean, if you look here, like a couple of years ago versus now, you see all those quadrupeds and mobile robots running around in the middle of the audience. And at ICRA every day this year there was a huge pile of quadruped robots walking around in the middle of the crowd. Things are changing already, or the interaction with robots is changing already, and I hope that in the next 10 years we can also make this change happen for manipulation capabilities of robots, so that we not only see robots moving but manipulating in the wild, so that I don't know, this glass of water is brought here by a robot, or when it's empty, the robot is coming and refilling it. And then we will also be able to get the beer from the fridge in 25 years, I hope.
It would be nice. Maybe I'd like to add something. What we will also see, I'm pretty sure this will happen in the next decade, that warehousing will be completely automated, so that we have literally dog halls without humans. So we know there are a lot of people having jobs there, but I'm pretty sure that this will significantly change. Mm-hmm. And I also think the same for the delivery sector. So now we have all these delivery services, And I can imagine that this will be also done by robots sometimes, so which are using the streets. I mean, we already saw these delivery robots, but I think there will be the
last
number will
mile
increase
delivery
significantly.
robots. Yeah, yeah, the last mile delivery robots. But then, um, what do you think? What is stopping us? What are the ethical challenges also behind this thing that we want to develop for the next 10 years? Maybe you can, like each of you, if you have something in mind when it comes to the ethical challenges for bringing this technology to everyday's life.
We could talk about sidewalk robots if we want here. I think one example is we're getting better about taking multiple types of stakeholders into account, right? So there's the patients, there's the caregivers, there's the employees who are going to be using these robots, but I think taking into account the indirect stakeholders, right? So when a sidewalk robot gets stranded on the sidewalk, as they do, they're now blocking the sidewalk for people in wheelchairs, right?
Exactly.
What about your neighbor who's getting annoyed because you got, a drone delivery of pizza in your backyard, right? And put their dog in the backyard at risk, right?
Yeah.
I think there's all these indirect stakeholders who are really important for us to take into account. The communities and the society level issues, right, are just as important as the direct stakeholders, right? Just because I wanted my pizza really fast, that doesn't mean that everyone in my neighborhood should have to suffer for it.
And how do you think that we should address these challenges?
That is a good question. I mean, if we do good research, right, we're actually interviewing the neighbors too, and we're interviewing, the city council. We're taking into account all those other people who also use the same spaces that we do and where the robots are running around.
Yeah, but also maybe having different communities talk to each other, because we always tend to stay engineers in one side, for example, in my case, clinicians for the other side, and people expert in law on an ethical problem. So we should try to push even more these communities to communicate, even in the development of the devices itself, and work together to find a good compromise in the solutions.
Understand. And
there's a good analogy, I think. Google Street View, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it was released, and at least, especially in Germany, a lot of people get very angry because now they can see their house in the internet without any boundaries, And this changed 15 years later. It's normal. It's kind of all everyday technology, and we know the Google cars are going around again, and they updating the images. And now I would say the resistance is not that big like we had it 15 years ago. So, but I think this wasn't the right way. So whenever we deploy new technology, we need also to find ways to keep people involved so that they have at least a voice that can be heard. And but this is not easy, and I'm also not an expert. I don't have the solution. Sorry.
so educating people then in the first place.
Education would be good, but we already know that the schools are, and because my wife is a teacher, so we cannot add more to the teaching plan. It's already crowded, and so it's a huge challenge for us as a society to bring more robots into our daily life. But it's unavoidable because we see that we have a shrinking workforce, but we want to keep our prosperity, and that's
Yeah, for sure. Wanna add on that, because you also worked on for example, brain. I would say human interfaces, human-robot interfaces with some tools that this is definitely a cool technology. And what do you think what ethical challenges that kind of technology could be bring to the I would say table, and what are the solutions to solve that?
I mean, there was already a big ethical challenge in this. When I started working on this in 2009, I did those experiments together with a Brown University in the US, because it was not allowed to have neural implants here in Europe. This has changed by now, so I think it's somehow being transparent of what the technology is going to do. Of course, we have to also study on how it is going to affect the humans, But then basically we have to be transparent. What is happening with the data? What does it mean? I mean, having a brain implant doesn't mean that we are reading someone's thought. It was in the motor cortex. It was using motor commands. And yeah, people have to basically be educated. What is happening with the data? If there's a robot with a camera driving around, what happens to this data? What is this, the images that robot takes of me? We have to be transparent with what is happening to this. That data probably shouldn't be stored because no one can give the consent to allow this. But we somehow need to manage this and inform the people how this is approached and how it's dealt with.
And do you think, for example, edge computing, edge processing also helps in this kind of aspect? Because people don't like their data to go to the cloud. They want this stuff to happen, for example, on the robot. On the other hand, it will be expensive. On the other hand, more efficient to do, for example, on the cloud. And what do you think about this kind of challenges, technical challenges we need to solve the other way, and the ethical challenges we need to solve, for example, with edge processing, edge computing, and they are not really merging at some point to one point. They are going parallel, and this is different, that is different, and how we can leverage this?
I mean, in the end, I think you need to give this decision to the people. It's like with your mobile. You can decide whether you want to store your data in the cloud or keep it locally on the phone. And you have to, of course, you have to trust the company that it also handles the data this way, but there's regulations on this at least. And I think this has to be done similar in robots. So I think for some people it's very important that the data stays on the robot, is not transferred to any cloud. So we have to provide this, and this will be part of the solution.
Thank you. Any comment on that? Okay, then I will ask the next question. Very hot topic in the field of robotics and AI now is regulation. Now we see AI, GPT, and many AI technologies every day, and now we are talking about let's not make more powerful AI than what it is now until we figure out what we are going to do with that, how we are going to stop it if something happened. And now, considering these rapid changes and diverse potential of such a technology, I want to ask each of you, what are the framework you have in mind for not stopping the innovation, but also bringing the safety and also ethical consideration into such a challenge? I know it's a very hard and very tough question, but I want to know your opinion on that. Who wants to start?
I can try. Tough question, by the way. Regulation is a balance act, you know. We need to find the right balance between have a well-working society and don't stop innovation, or don't block it, allow it. And because AI, at first of all, it seems so that everything is possible with AI. That everything makes sense. I mean, there are still other solutions or other ways to solve some problems. It does not necessarily need to be AI, but it's also, for some problems, it's a game changer. So what can we do? So I'm also an ISO convener, so I'm an ISO officer and leading there a working group, and I'm a little bit involved in, at least in standardization. It's very similar to legislation, and what we have there is, and that's why it takes always so long to create a new standard, that we have a lot of discussions. So we need to find a consensus, we need to find the baseline, and then we have, I think, the point where we can start to work actually, you know, okay, what is the baseline, so what is the ground level here, and then we can build up on that. And this takes time. And I think, at least in my experience, you need to repeat the same idea 100 times, and then there's the point it gets accepted. So we need to take out the discussion, we need to repeat it again and again and again, we need to try to listen everyone's voice, and then we need to find the right way, whatever it is at the end. So it should be a democratic process, I think, and the result will not make everyone happy, but I would say the majority at least.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, not
No,
very specific.
No,
but,
no, clear answer. So the clear solution, I would say, very good answer, because we need to discover the answer. What I understand, that we are discovered something, and we need to see how we are going to use this one. Want to add on that? Yeah. So.
Thank you for taking the time to serve on the ISO standards committees, because
thank
that
you.
is a labor of love. I think it's really important, though, right, for those of us who understand the technologies better to participate in those discussions, because otherwise the policymakers making decisions are going to make them based upon what they've heard from others, right? And they may or may not be realistic. They may not be grounded in, what the systems can and can't do. We can also talk more about, what are the risks of not doing it, right? To compete, say, on the international stage or in the, corporate arena. I think we are one of many perspectives that needs to be in that room, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. The companies that I work with often talk about having, somebody's got to go serve on the safety standards committee from our group, because otherwise this is not going to happen. For drones in the United States, for example, right, there's a small UAS coalition of a whole bunch of companies that really want to make this happen, and they're working together with policymakers in the federal government, right, to figure out, like, what are reasonable regulations. Because, the alternatives might be you're just burning more fossil fuels with trucks, right? What's the comparison point? Like, what's the risk, again, of not doing it?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so then I wanted to say, because we are running out of time, so if you have one short also thing to add at the end, and if you have some takeaway from this discussion from your perspective, maybe each of you can very shortly tell us.
Okay, maybe I can start this time. So I think it was great discussion, and also it's very important to have this type of event, talk with the general public, talk among us researchers, talk with different community, and we are living in a very exciting moment, so we have a lot of possibility. We just need to maybe understand better and show what are the benefits. Then maybe people will be more willing to compromise also.
Absolutely.
I think for me,
Thank
it's
you.
been the most interesting to hear about how across very different industries,
Yes.
there's some really good practices that I think it's nice to share across, right?
See.
I mean, especially, manufacturing has much more experience right now than, say, warehousing, which has much more experience than, say, home robots. What's that going to look like, right? And I think, continuing to share those stories and best practices is a really good, positive way forward.
Great.
Because these are hard problems, and we're probably not going to solve them on our own.
That sounds good.
Yeah, my last statement would be that everyone here in this room and this exhibition should participate in the discussion, step forward, raise your voice, share your concerns, share the opportunities you see. Let us understand more together what we are doing actually with deploying more robots. And when it comes to safety, feel everyone invited to get involved in these committees which are responsible for shaping the future, and getting more involved.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I can only second all of what has been said, and I'm looking forward to those 25-year challenges. And as you said, let's keep discussing. Let's try to find the best solutions. Be transparent of what robotics can do, what it can't do, and what's our way to make it work in the future.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And it was a great, I would say, adventure. I hope that each of us learned something, and of course our panelists will be around. I think that if you have some question, if you want to take this discussion and see how we can involve more in this area and how we can work together towards this area, please reach out. And thanks again, everyone, and thank you again. It was great to have you all here. And okay.